On trade, President Trump halting a 50% tariff on Canada. He says the two countries have the makings of a deal, and it could include a comeback for the Keystone Pipeline. That would be something. So more on that coming up momentarily. First, however, we move to this. Socialists are swinging for the fences yet again, this time in Florida. The card-carrying member, Angie Nixon, card-carrying member of the DSA, pulling off a stunning upset in the Senate Democratic primary from last night. So what happened there? Good morning, everybody. We're here to dive in. I'm Bill Hemmer, live here in New York City midweek. Hello.
Hello. Great to be here with you.
Every time we learn something about these races, right?
Yes.
There's a little something about what's going out there.
Yes, and I turn to you. All eyes turn to you, Bill Hemmer.
Okay, right on.
You're going to be on the board soon.
No praise.
Tell everybody what's happening.
No praise.
I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. Angie Nixon is their name. She beat retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Vindman by double digits. This is an outcome that pollsters did not see coming. Now, you may remember Vindman from 2019. Why? Well, because he was a key witness in President Trump's first impeachment trial.
So Nixon is just the latest socialist to defy expectations. She campaigned on universal health care. She campaigned on raising the minimum wage and argues that those are winning issues, even in reliably deep red Florida.
Hundreds of thousands of Floridians who stood up because they believed in the vision of a better Florida. We love you! I love y'all too. That we deserve to thrive, not just survive.
Okay, now Danamarie McNicholl on the day after, live in Fort Lauderdale, here to take us through all of it. Good morning there.
Good morning, Bill and Dana. Well, we do have some conflicting messaging in the Democratic Party after yesterday's election. As you mentioned, DSA Socialist, she won that nomination for the U.S. Senate, but the Democrat running for governor, he's rejecting socialism outright. So let's start with that major upset. State Representative Angie Nixon defeating Alex Vindman with a grassroots campaign, delivering a major left-wing victory over an establishment Democrat. Vindman is a former national security official who was a key witness in President Trump's impeachment trial. Nixon won by double digits despite just under $1 million compared to Vindman's $16 million. Nixon gained national attention after her arrest for staging a sit-out outside Governor Ron DeSantis' office this year. She'll now face an uphill battle in November against Republican Senator Ashley Moody, who got 1.3 million votes. Nixon wasted no time calling out her opponent.
She doesn't care about anyone but herself. And so I look forward, Ashley Moody, to taking you on and to whooping you in November, and you will be calling me your senator.
President Trump posting sleazebag Vindman loses tonight to a radical left lunatic. How cool is that? Well, the socialist test failed in Florida for the congressional primary. DSA-backed Oliver Larkin will not advance after losing to moderate pro-Israel Jared Moskowitz in the 25th district. Moskowitz marked his victory by posting, "My condolences to Hassan Piker." That's the controversial far-left socialist commentator who backed Larkin. In District 20, Democrat Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz fended off a younger progressive DSA-backed challenger Elijah Manley. Now on the Republican side, as expected, Byron Donald secured the GOP nomination for governor. He'll face former Republican Congressman David Jolly, who is hoping to turn Florida blue, positioning himself as a moderate.
Look, I reject the DSA. I reject socialism. I'm a capitalist, and I think capitalism provides the greatest amount of economic mobility. I have been with Angie on the trail, and I'll tell you this, she's a fighter. She leaves it all on the field.
And Bill and Dana, Angie, if she were to win in November, she would make history as the first DSA candidate to serve in the U.S. Senate. So it should be interesting to see how the Democrats campaign for the midterms together.
Okay, we're watching it with you, together with you, Danamarie. Thanks. Nice to see you there in Fort Lauderdale. Dana.
Hi, Josh Holmes. Great to have you here. Always good to have the Ruthless Podcast guys here, Fox News contributor. Thanks for being here. So one of the DSA candidates that we talked about yesterday, Oliver Larkin, he lost. This one, though, people did not see coming, and maybe that's why people are taking a look at this and saying, wow, Angie Nixon really outworked Alex Vindman.
Yeah, well, good morning, guys. It's a fun little Wednesday morning tradition during primary season to talk about how the DSA is taking over the Democratic Party. I feel like we do this on an almost weekly basis. Look, Dana, there's embarrassing losses, and then there's this. Alex Vindeman, you're talking about somebody who raised $17 million, had a 17-1 cash advantage over his opponent, Angie Nixon, in this race. And all of that is evaporated overnight with this DSA anti-Israel message statewide in Florida, which honestly is a really rough sell in the state of Florida. I think that the competitiveness of this Senate race evaporated with the $17 million on Tuesday night.
Wow. Okay, so she was asked about who she'd support. Look, she's a long way from victory. I grant you that. We'll see what happens the first week of November. But she was asked about Chuck Schumer. This question comes up a lot for a lot of these candidates, and here's how she answered that. Watch.
To win the primary first. But if we see Senator Angie Nixon, will you support Leader Schumer to be the Democrats' leader in the upper chamber, or do you think we need new leadership?
You know, I think we need new leadership all across the country, so that's my answer to you.
Okay, so whether it's Florida or whether it's Michigan, how do we to interpret what the fate is for that come Washington, D.C., Josh?
Bill, I'm beginning to think it would be a lot easier to count the number of candidates who support Chuck Schumer than those who don't. I've yet to really encounter one who's been a full-throated endorsement of the current Senate minority leader. But look, I think this race is a microcosm of this long, strange trip the Democrat Party has been on here over the last few years. Vindeman is somebody who is a darling of the progressive left, of course, during Russiagate, when all of Democratic politics was viewed through the lens of Russia and Putin. But now we've changed a lot. We're dealing with a socialist era of Democrat politics, and more importantly, an anti-Israel one. And that has had a lot of motivation for Democratic primary voters across this country, where even if they don't win in all of these races, they make them super competitive. And in a race like this, where you're talking about $17 million to less than one, it is a striking contrast to have somebody who just 6 years ago was a darling of the left be run out on a wire by somebody who's simply a socialist and doesn't like Israel.
Laura Ingraham asked Bill de Blasio, the former mayor of New York, about why he thinks the DSA is winning. Here's his take.
There are specific leaders who have emerged out of the DSA who are providing a vision that actually a lot of people in this country are hungry for. That is not the status quo of what's broken with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. It is about the leaders that are emerging, like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mamdani. They are pointing in a specific direction, and there's a reason they're winning. They're talking about progressive policies.
So on the messaging front, which is something I know you know a lot about, as these candidates start to figure out the next 8 weeks or so until the election, what do you think about what Bill de Blasio is saying? Do they have a little bit of an edge because they're getting media attention, and he says they're talking about the issues people want to talk about?
They certainly have an edge in Democrat primary politics. We've seen that Tuesday after Tuesday for the last several months. Whether they do in a general electorate, I think, is another matter entirely. And I'm utterly confused, Dana, about what the message of the Democrat Party is at this point. Both Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries don't seem to have a clue. The anti-Israel sentiment, as I just stated, seems to be the predominant messaging that comes out of these primaries with the socialist side. And then there's just a different flavor of socialism depending upon where you're at. There is no bumper sticker for this Democratic Party. It is just a full-throated super soaker of crazy every single time that they're on the stump. And look, maybe that works in a general election. I'm really skeptical. I think they've shot themselves in the foot a number of times here.
Okay, certainly not in Florida.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the poll that we keep coming back to. Mid-July, here it is. Fox polling on the DSA. Democrats, 59% they have a favorable opinion of it, Josh. I mean, that's what's moving. Socialism is listed lower at 52%. All right, so the party itself that's pushing these policies is